Welcome to What CEOs Talk About. Do you wonder what CEOs talk about behind closed doors? How they bring their vision to reality? How do they overcome and succeed through adversity? We share that and so much more with each episode. Now, let's get started with the show.
Good day, everybody. My name is Martin Hunter. I am the host of What CEOs Talk About. What a show that we have today. Rob and Shamil, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
We're giggling because we technical difficulties like Zoom and Riverside and all that good stuff. So we had a good giggle. So thank you very much for making the time to be on the show. Rob, who are you? What do you do for a living?
My name is Rob Follows. I'm the founder and CEO of STS Capital Partners. We make extraordinary exits possible. That's what I do all day long.
All day long. Fabulous. Shamil, what's your name? What do you do for a living?
My name is Shamil Hargovan. I'm a managing director at STS Capital Partners, and I also work on the foundation work we do with the firm.
Fabulous. What does STS stand for?
STS stands for Success to Significance through Selling to Strategics. We have two trademarks. One is Success to Significance, which talks about the why, and the second, the how, through Selling to Strategics.
Fabulous. Thank you. What is, Rob, so thank you very much for that. What is the title of the show?
Making Extraordinary Exits Possible.
Oh, I think everybody's, let's put three dots before you learn the secrets of extraordinary exits. Rob, tell us about yourself. Like, how does, back in when I was born, no, you don't have to go that far, but tell me the kind of Cole's note of where Rob started his life. How did you become who you are today? And how does Rob and STS kind of come together?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm Canadian, was born in Montreal. My dad was in the packaging machinery business, and we were living in Toronto. And by the time I was 17, I was the oldest son. He insisted that I confirm I would be taking over the family business. And I said, no, Dad, I can't stand the smell of machines. I couldn't find the on switch. You're an engineer. I'm not. I love people and marketing and strategy. And that's what I'm going to do. And he said, great, you're cut off. You're thrown out of the family financially, and you owe me $20,000 for this and that and the other, an 18% interest rate, and you better start paying interest. So my dad was a tough guy. He created an entrepreneur because I was determined I was gonna pay that money back and pay for my university and have some fun along the way. And I had to make quite a bit of money to do that. And so I ended up starting a business which became the largest independent marketing services firm in Canada. It was called AIM, which stood for Active Impressions in Marketing. And we ended up, when free trade came along, being the only independent, this is interesting from a selling to strategic standpoint, the only independent marketing services firm in Canada that a very large US firm could buy when free trade opened up, so that they would block their competitors from owning us and protect their intellectual property. I ended up building that business up for 10 years. I sold it for 27 times EBITDA when I was 29 years old, which was crazy. I was very, very, very thankful. But the quick story is, when I got on the other side and became responsible for all the international business and opened my own file, they would have paid 100 times EBITDA for the firm. I left 4 times the money on the table, which was really hard to accept. And I made a commitment. I'm going to help others one day realize the full value of their business, as I was buying businesses all over the world for the family. When they want to sell a business, just like I should have known the full value of my business, I'm going to help others and build a team that'll help others learn the real value of their business, hence selling to strategics.
So there we are today.
Well, it's a little more involved than that. I got sponsored to do a PhD at the business school at Oxford after doing a leadership course there. And that was 20 years ago. And when I was there, this issue was a burning issue for me. And I said to the professors, you've got to teach these kids that are going in to M&A advisory and iBanking that strategy comes first, because I was in the strategy discipline. How a business gets bought strategically, they'll pay more is really
Mm.
what drives that. And so you've got to be teaching them strategy. And they said, no, sir. And so STS was born at Oxford in the business school when I was doing a PhD program there, because they don't teach strategy to M&A advisory students. At least they weren't 20 years ago. And we committed to do that for clients and help them get the real value of their business when they go to sell it.
It amazes me how, and I take a hard look at our educational system. When you look at, how the educational system works currently, like elementary school, high school, we prepare people for a workforce that doesn't exist anymore. And so, but it's true, we prepare people to be accountants and doctors and all that stuff, and employees and long-term employees, to which none of it is accurate or relevant anymore. And then we don't teach them how to do economics. We don't teach them how to do cash flow. We don't, there's a whole bunch of things. And same thing, not having an MBA was a big chip on my shoulder for a long time. And my wife said to me one day, she's like, okay, so you're going to spend $80,000 for a piece of paper to forget people to tell you what you already know. So really, is this a good investment, right? I was like, damn, you got a point. But I mean, I went straight from high school to the military and earned my stripes to there. So I always had, oh, well, you went to university? Like I wasn't, like, you guys had parties all the time. I want to live that lifestyle. But anyways, that educational component is key. So I think that as we work with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, even people with MBAs, they have no idea. They're like, oh, let's go for funding. Well, I'm scared of leaving or selling the farm, and they're going to take everything. They're going to take my family. They're going to take, and rightfully so. There is, knowledge dispels fear, and I think that there's not enough knowledge out there when it comes. A lot of people don't even know what M&A stands for. Rob, what does M&A stand for?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. And if I say anything else that's and an acronym, please stop me as we get so used to it. But M&A stands for mergers and acquisitions. But really, now that you asked the question, we shouldn't say that. We're sell-side advisors. We're not really M&A, because M&A is both buying and selling of businesses. So we're really sell-side advisors. So thanks for raising that.
Yeah, I think that.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Well, EBITDA is the other thing I realized I just said, and it's earnings before. So it's basically profit with a bunch of things taken out of it. EBITDA is a term used in mergers and acquisitions. It just really means adjusted profit.
Correct. A lot of people don't know how to pronounce it, and second of all, don't know what's in it.
Right.
So let's take this podcast to really educate people. So when a seller or an organization, I got like 1,000 questions going through my head right now. All the baby boomers that are coming out, all the millennials that are looking at SaaS, and the brick and mortar companies that are making lots of profit. Okay. But anyway, I'll pause because I got 1,000 questions to go forward. Okay. So run us through the transactional components required. So gross revenue, then we've got profitability, then we've got EBITDA. When you guys are doing sell side, how important is it for an organization to understand their numbers properly?
Shamil?
Yeah, I think the short answer is very important to have strong understanding of your numbers, because that's how you run a business. Knowing your cash flow, understanding your profits and losses is very important. It's funny though, what I think you'll hear from us though is that's important, but there's something else even more important, which is your strategic value to either your client, your customer, or the potential buyer on the other side. So they're not just looking at what's your profitability, but if you can show them you've got something they need to grow their business in another side of the world, or you've got a piece of technology that if they could incorporate it, that just turns their business 5 times more. That's what we want you to be selling based on. And the thing is, a lot of these experts, right? They'll come in and say, based on this, you should be worth Y.
Yeah.
And people go, well, I don't know any better. And they go, okay. In fact, Rob went through this himself. And in many ways, that was the impetus for starting STS Capital, is to recognize there's more to the story.
It's so true. When I think about it, I just did the biggest mistake that I tell other company owners not to do. Don't sell yourself, sell the need. What's the need? And what's the need analysis, right? So what does the buyer need from you? It has nothing to do with what you do or how you do it. Oh, man, I was schooled again. You see, this is great. But I mean, it's so frequently where we look at the results and not necessarily the foresight. We go, hey, here's lagging indicators, your gross revenue, your profitability, your EBITDA, all of that. But when you say, well, hold on a second, what's the gap that you're filling for the client? It's no different, right? No different than any selling of a pair of shoes or a dental service.
Well, that's true. However, that's where strategy comes in. And so if you can understand what the strategic buyer, well, just what a buyer, forget calling him strategic, what a buyer, not a financial buyer, by the way, there's a big distinction. I just want to point that out to our listeners, that a financial buyer is somebody who is buying to resell with a financial motivation for the financial gain. And they're private equity, merchant banks, SPACs, all different types of Wall Street, Bay Street, the city in London, those financial architectural kind of, and they're smart, and they're very articulate about what they're doing, but they're really using other people's money to buy your business and flip it to sell to somebody else. That's for a higher number. That's what they're doing. A strategic buyer, on the other hand, who's they're going to sell to, because they're really smart, they figured out who's going to, this is really important, make more money owning your business than you do. That's a simple way to define it. And that requires strategy, a strategic analysis, like what are they going to do with your products? What are they going to do with your business, your brand, your technology? How are they going to leverage that? Through the simple one would be take your unique product and distribute it around the world. That would be a simple one. Then you can measure how much they're going to make selling that product all around the world. And then you can see the value of your business to them as much more than it is to you, because they're going to sell it around the whole world. And then the next step is to figure out how much money they're going to make doing that, and then negotiate for a percentage of that. And entrepreneurs can't do that themselves. They need a professional negotiator to do that, and somebody that the buyer will confide in, because they don't want to make a mistake. So you have to be dealing with very experienced people, understand when you're talking to very large strategic buyers, how to get them to open the kimono, share what they're going to do with the business, such that you can negotiate against that embedded value.
That's a big question in its own, because every time you hear about an acquisition or a sell or anything like that, there's always this cloak of, oh, well, a very military kind of Sun Tzu approach to it, right? Let's get the high ground. Let's do this, right? Let's try to negotiate and win this war against them, where trying to get transparency, I guess, would be very difficult. But I want to bring it back to selling to the future state, right? So when you're selling a pair of hiking boots, the person purchasing the boots is saying, well, I will be a better hiker. My knees will hurt less. That future state of purchase is what you're saying is applicable to the same strategic purchase, right? It's to say, hey, what's the future state? They need us as much as they need them. So man, oh man, again, let me bring it back to the other questions that I had.
It's a little bit, Martin, like, in business school, they talk about cost-based pricing versus value-based pricing. We're talking value-based pricing, but we're also finding the kind of people that think that way, not just, the people who are going to look at it from purely a financial lens. That's not to say financials don't play into it. It certainly does. I think the other thing I would just expand upon when you talk about the future state, Rob alluded to this, but you watch the movies and it's like it's someone there. They come into a room, they put a number on the ground, on the floor, slide it across. It's just not like that. We do negotiate hard, but ultimately we got to be collaborative with these folks, because they understand. The buyer understands what they can get from it. We understand what the buyer's thinking. We help them craft the story. Sometimes even internally, they need to figure out how to pitch this and position this. It might be a division leader trying to sell it to the corporate leader or something like that. So it's just not like the movies. It's collaborative. Don't get me wrong. We work crazy hours and we work for our clients and we negotiate hard, but it's very collaborative.
Yeah. I mean, the best deals are always the win-win deals, right? And I always say win-win-win, because you've got, I win, you win, therefore we win together. So we're creating something that is unique by having all of our views in it. And I think that there's too many people that are scared, and fear brings on bad decisions. And I think that I always tell people, I mean, that's the reason why
Well said.
Urgio gets hired, right? They're fearful. I don't know what my future brings on. So they hire us as on-demand executives, and we go, okay, we've done this before. Don't worry about it. We'll get you there, right? So I think that confidence, especially with now, I'll bring the question of the baby boomers with the brick and mortar companies, right? So now we've got a whole bunch of baby boomers that don't even have a cell phone, a mobile phone. Some of them, they're still, I don't want to say they're using faxes, but no marketing, no online presence. They don't believe in Instagram or all of that because they've got their 30 years worth of clientele that comes in. All of their capital expenditure has been long paid for, so they're highly profitable. Who's going to buy that? When you like the mindset, there's such a big mindset difference in regards to what we valued as younger people to what current younger people value. I mean, some of these young people have a boatload of money, like a boatload of money. Sorry, Rob, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'll stop the question.
Well, yeah, I think that is a great question. Where will you find the buyer for X? And a professional group that understands how to analyze that business, not for what it's doing now, but for what it can do inside a new context, is really where you get the answer to that question. So using your example of somebody that has a platform they could plug all those clients into, plug all those supply lines into, and leverage them up because they are digital, has been happening since COVID started.
That's true,
recently.
yeah.
And so there are great examples of that. But the broader question you asked is a brilliant one. Who's going to want to buy that? And that question, every potential seller needs to think of 2 or 3 years before they sell and work with a real pro that can take them out and get them in front of those that will value them more than they're currently earning. And that's really the answer to your question. It takes a pro.
Yeah, think about the example of Amazon buying the group, the group in Seattle, Whole Foods. We've all been to Whole Foods. Apologies. And you could go almost. That's kind of going the opposite direction. An online platform's buying a retail outlet. What's going on? Well, when you dig into it, they had a higher price point customer. They had a community base, and what's interesting in this digital movement, the kind of backlash around digital is communities become even more important. And so you're finding these businesses that are saying, well, let's take all the rules on digital versus physical. Let's blend those two together, but let's talk about how we reach our customer in multiple ways and multiple touch points. So I think there's a lot of hope for that particular group. And one of the things that I've learned working with Rob, and he's really coached me on this, is we also like to understand for that, say, baby boomer looking at retirement, and they're asking themselves, okay, who do I sell to, and how would I sell, and why would I sell? We also want to know why they want to sell, because usually they've built something with passion for 30, 40 years, and they've clearly been in business for 30, 40 years, so they're doing something right, probably more than something right. And we figure, okay, well, how do we position this to the right buyer? And a lot of that particular segment actually care about their legacy too. They care about what happens with the money from it. What does that business continue? Do the employees stay on? So we try to think about all their preferred and required outcomes as we build out the strategy for that particular client.
When you think of, and this brings me back to the 4 P's of marketing, when you think about it, what you guys do is when somebody approaches you to sell their business, you really have to do like a market analysis. When you think about it, you say, okay, well, how do I connect the people who want to purchase this product with the product, or the product with the people who want to purchase the product, right? So that's like, you have to be strong in marketing to be able to connect those dots. Damn.
So marketing and strategy are the 2 real leverage points that entrepreneurs ought to consider when they're deciding who's going to represent them in selling their business. Because you're exactly right. People that crunch all these numbers and come at it from a financial analysis standpoint miss the point, miss the opportunity of the creativity that strategy will drive, and then marketing that out, positioning it out to the potential strategic buyers. And the whole creativity that goes into developing that whole mind mapping process of who are all the different types of companies from all over the world. And going global is really important because you get different interests from all over the world, using different currencies, different thresholds for purchasing, and they can bring really creative ideas to the table. So going broad and going further than the entrepreneur or the family business owner ever imagined is what needs to be done. Leveraging marketing once you understand the strategy, and sometimes there's 3 or 4 different strategies. For one company, it might be a fit in Asia for this reason with its intellectual property. It might be a fit for bringing global products into the United States or Canada or Mexico, wherever it might be from another, strategy. It might be leveraging the management platform for another, and they're all different valuations. And so with those strategies in place, marketing out to everybody globally, that's what will drive a great process.
Yeah, no different than channels. It's funny because I'm seeing so many correlations to having good processes within an organization. You're selling a business, and I mean you're looking at different strategy channels. You're basically doing an NPD, new product development, for each of the clients.
That's right.
That's a brilliant comment you just made, because we actually create a market every time we run a process, and it's process driven. You're absolutely right on both counts. 100%.
And then
I would just build upon that in that, I have a lot of entrepreneur friends and founders that go, I've got some interest from a private equity group, or I've got someone who said they might want to buy my company. And first I have to remind them that a lot of that happens on LinkedIn every day. And so don't get too excited. But the second thing is, competition matters in the process too. So once we've got the market and the strategy, we then build upon that. And this is something we always work with the founder and the owners and say, okay, so you've got a potential offer. Well, now that you might be desirable, what if we went out and ran our full process, like Rob's talking about, and find out who else is out there for you? And it's actually through that, not only are we looking at who might want to buy, but the amount we learn to understand who might want to buy or why they wouldn't want to buy also supports our ability to go and get them the ultimate right buyer that meets their required and preferred outcomes. And I say that because, not all outcomes are equal. Yeah, there's a monetary component, but sometimes there's more than just the money for the founder and the owner in terms of how that exit occurs.
I always say piss poor planning proves poor performance. So, I think the planning stage of it, I think too many people underestimate the value of taking the time to sell their business. And because we deal with a lot of explosive growth companies, right? And they go, oh, well, we need to go fast, market's hot and this and that. And I go, well, hold on, guys, like, just chill out. What is it? There's one person's going to go out there, they'll go, oh, I'll give you $350 million for that. Okay, well, do your due diligence. So say, okay, what is it that you're selling? How is it important? Is there time? Like that strategic component of not just selling to sell. And I think, Rob, your experience that you lived those years back of leaving, that many points on the table, pardon my French, but fuck me. Like, you're like, son of a bitch, you assholes, right? But there's a spectrum, right? When you make a lot of money, a lot more money, does it really matter, right? But it does. But ultimately, the second component, what we're not talking, there's going to be 2 parts to these podcasts. So podcast 1 is STS, and then Shamil and I are going to split apart after. So there's going to be a part 2 where we're going to talk about what do you do with all this wonderful money that you had and the impact that you want to create, because now it is important to leverage that money in an impactful way. Because I think that there's so I'll share something with you and the audience. I coach my daughter's field hockey, and I've coached her since she was 5 years old, 6 years old. And I've coached this girl Summer with her. She's 13 years old and she committed suicide 3 weeks ago. 13 years old, right? So you look at what's out there, and don't give me this bullshit. Oh, my company sells shoes. I don't make anything and everything that you do that is created out of demand. You have in 2021 the responsibility to say, okay, how do I impact? So as little as impacts as you can, what are you doing to improve the lives of the consumers and the planet that we live on, right? Tracy, my wife, she's an early adopter. We have a box of toilet paper that got delivered to my house. It's called Shit Happens. I'm like, why are we getting an Amazon delivery of toilet paper in our house, right? And he says, here's what all the benefits that we have. And they did this cool thing on the outside of the box that says, once you've done, it said, no printing, whatever, all the things that you're not supposed to do, which is really environmental friendly. And they said, please also great to making a rocket or cardboard rocket spaceship for your kids. I was like, wow, just that little thing of, hey, reuse, how's it go? Reuse, recycle, and or reduce, reuse, recycle. I think my point being, whatever business you have nowadays, there needs to have an impact to it. And I can't wait to talk more in details about that later on, because that's what you guys do as well.
Well, we do with Altruvest, but there's also a part of STS that does that. Can I share that part about on the STS side?
Absolutely.
So STS stands for two things. The selling to strategics we've really talked about. The why somebody would be really interested in taking the time to sell at a maximum value. We really talk a lot about what are you going to do after the sale of the business, and it's important to us that we at least raise the point that we don't take it with us when we go. And if we really maximize value in the sale of the business, we might get 200 or 300% more than a seller would get from a financial buyer. And so if you can get 200 or 300% more, and it's really found money, because you're thinking the valuation, say 100 million, we're thinking we get you 200 million. That extra $100 million can do a heck of a lot of good in the world, and it can create a fantastic, purposeful legacy for the entrepreneur or the family business owner, where they're really not, as our clients often say, giving something away that they counted on. And so that's something that we talk about at STS, success to significance. What can that be? What could the focus be post or alongside as you're developing your sell side strategy? And so we do two things at STS. One, we bring a whole bunch of resources in to help our clients think about what their legacy can be, how they'd like to set that up. We don't charge for that. We just donate all of those resources to them. And so that if they want to set up a foundation, or if they want to, set a charitable focus up, or whatever they might want to do, they've got the resources there, the coaches, the supporters, the executors. So it's all much easier for them. And they can lean on other people's experience as well. And then secondly, we pay referral fees to our advisors at STS, specialists in different industries that refer business to us. And at STS, if that's given to a charity, if you were to direct that to your favorite charity, we match that contribution.
Oh, wow.
And that can be, on an average size deal, $1 million donation to your charity. And so that's really significant. And a lot of people are really excited about that, and are working on the success to significance side of STS. So that's the other part of STS. The success to significance branding supports or is supported by the selling to strategics.
Martin, this is one of the reasons I actually joined STS, was when I got to meet Rob. And well, first of all, Rob's a fun guy, so getting to know Rob. but secondly, when he said my MTP, my massive transformational purpose, is to create billions of dollars of new impact and philanthropic capital for the world, I was like, okay, now that's an idea. And then he's, well, through M&A, of course, that's the vehicle. And what I find more and more as I talk to this new generation of entrepreneurs, especially, and it's not just the younger folks, it's also, but there is this mentality of, okay, I built it, but I built it so that I I only need so much. And my family needs so much to have, education paid for 10 generations. And then I want to do something good with this, And so, I just think if we really understand the people we work with and we support, well, then we need to understand this part really well and do it well too. And that's really become, as you even see in the investing world, impact capital, some funds are boasting over 33 to 50% of their investments are not impact investments. So you're seeing that movement. And we're actually, I would argue, Rob's been doing it for 30 years and the world's catching up.
I completely agree. In this day and age, people tend to be a little bit more frugal, which I appreciate. I mean, people understand the urgency behind a couple of key events that have happened lately in our world, right? I think that this for me, this mental health situation that happened with Summer is something that I want to personally tackle. Like a 13-year-old girl who is well surrounded, loved. Sorry, my voice is cracking a little bit, but that I've coached and supported, who has a loving family, a loving sister, loving neighbors. When she makes that choice because of the world impact, don't tell me that your shoes don't make a difference. It makes a difference where you buy your sourced material. It makes a difference who you sell to, how you do it. Just be honest and transparent. I think that that is the key to success to a lot of businesses that we see. Let's use the dark side here for a little bit. What do you guys struggling with? What do you see that's not going so well at either STS and or your clients? What's the biggest problem you're faced with?
So the understanding that we exist. Most people don't know that we exist, that this exists, that you can sell to strategics. And private equity are making a fortune, and they're getting stronger and stronger. They keep 80. The fundamental model is they keep 80% of the upside, and the client gets 20% of the upside. And they say that 20% could be bigger than the initial. And they call this second bite of an apple. And our point is, hey, why can't you keep your whole apple and grow that and sell that? Because we'll help you do that. But there's very few people that protect entrepreneurs and family business owners from the very educated, very well resourced, and very, very smart and hard driving, financially driven, sharks of the wolves of Wall Street and the sharks there. And good for them. That's what they want to do. But families and entrepreneurs, I wish, knew that STS and there's nobody else yet that's doing what we do, but I'm sure there will be some that follow that help people sell to strategics only, and actually are never conflicted. Actually, only work for the seller. They're not, bribed, using a rough term, by the firms that are making offers, and also giving them an upside. Purely focused on supporting families and entrepreneurs, so they know, and totally confidentially. The problem with financial buyers, they don't really understand the operations of a business. They don't. And so what they do is they go out and talk to everybody about the deal they want to buy so they can try to understand it analytically. And that breaches all the confidentiality. So for these families and entrepreneurs to know that there's groups out there like us that will do it confidentially and globally. So you don't have to sell ultimately to that guy you've been competing with all your career. You could bring the Japanese in, you can bring the Chinese in, you can bring the Singaporeans in, thinking about Asia. Think about Europe. The Germans are very strong. The English and French are very strong economies. They're all looking outward to buy. The Nordics are very wealthy and are looking to buy. There's all kinds of and there's industries next door to yours that will enter, that is brand new thinking. We had a First Nations tribe in Alaska buy into a furniture software management business so they could get. It was crazy, and people said, "Where did you come up with that?" And our process did, but if the family knew, it wouldn't have taken them 6 months to make the decision to go to market. They were afraid their competitors were going to find out, their employees would find out, that they get hammered. And actually, they had a wonderful experience. And so we'd love to share our videos, our client videos, short and long, with those that want to see what clients say after having been through the process with us. So the challenge we have is we can't compete with all the private equity world. They're locking these clients up, and they're selling them, financially and not strategically. And so that's our challenge, is getting the message out there in a world where there's trillions of dollars of wealth going to be transferred.
So I'm going to do a audience call out. So if you're listening to this, okay, my ask and Rob's ask and Shamil's ask is, tell two friends. Tell two friends about STS, and ask your two friends to tell two friends. All right. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, whoever you are, and you know a small business owner, which is 100% guarantee, tell those two business owners. Okay. Make me a promise there. Okay. I'm looking at the camera right there. Make me a promise that you will do that. Okay. There's too many. Oh man, that's really powerful. So thank you for that. And I think that's for us at Urgio, especially, there's so many opportunities. I mean, like I said, we deal with a lot of explosive growth in people, and they're always asking us, well, when am I ready to sell? When am I ready to sell? When am I ready to sell? And I was like, well, that's not really my job to do so. Well, I've been approached to do that. What now with you guys in our portfolio, in our network, then it'll be a lot easier to say, hey, talk to STS, talk to STS, talk to STS, talk to STS. Did I say talk to STS?
That'd be awesome.
We'd love to help them and make sure they can do some good with that extra too. And Martin, I know you've got causes you work with as well in Vancouver, if I'm not mistaken. And so you see the upside in sharing some of those winnings with charity as well.
Well, hopefully one day, Mission Possible, the organization that I deal with in downtown East Side, that I will have an extra $1 million to just hand over. So
that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So, okay. So now we've looked at the dark side a little bit of what you're not doing. What is the biggest fear? So when you first talk, what's the biggest objection that you have to close before they sign up with you?
Shamil?
I think it's parts. People have this notion of how it's supposed to work. There's a lot of this. The financial sector is sort of governed by, your pedigree of your school and your, are you Goldman Sachs? Because everyone's heard of Goldman Sachs. So there's a little bit of that sort of this perspective of it all needs to look super buttoned up and polished and all of that. And what's funny for me is you can get through that really quickly, but initially you may not get the chance. So once you get, and I say that because you get through that really quickly because entrepreneurs are the scrappy, build a business. Sometimes I had to spend less on marketing to make payroll. And so when they realize we're a bunch of real people who've been entrepreneurs ourselves, and all our partners at the firm are people who have started a business, exited a business, or been a CEO and exiting a business. And so they quickly understand that, wait a second, there's something here where this group actually understands what I'm going through emotionally, at the heart level and at the mind level. And so, but to Rob's point though, initially there's lots of these, you get an entrepreneur who goes, I want you to send me the comparables on 3 things, or you want me to send me, I want you to send, it's almost like canned questions. And you go, why are you really asking this? And what we actually help them understand is we're actually industry agnostic. So it means we draw from creativity from multiple industries, bringing in experts from different deals. One of the worst things you can do if you learn nothing from what I'm saying today, it would be is find a firm that says I specialize in X and go with them. Because guess what you're going to get? Whatever's within X.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite examples recently, that was a group that selected STS that's in the beverage industry. And they actually selected us because the main person they would have gone with is a seller of beverage type businesses, and realized, well, I'm only going to get X if I do it with them, but I may get, X times 2 or 3 or 4 if I do it with STS. And, getting that message through to people, obviously, because we are so based on social cues. It's hard for us to know, hey, I've got to take the entrepreneurial route by working with entrepreneurs. and obviously we bring in great financial, our directors are world-class. They come from the iBanking world, the M&A, investment banking, or mergers and acquisitions, or CFOs of business that sold. So we've got a great mix of financial and strategic.
Thank you. What's the weirdest deal that you guys have put together? Like you look at A and you go, damn, I never thought that A and J would be connected ever. So what's the weirdest deal that you've put together?
I do think that a First Nations, so this was a Detroit-based furniture software selling business, right? Very straight down the middle of the fair. It was IBM software modified. And they expected that they would sell to another software integrator, and the multiples just weren't getting there. So we had a big creative session, say, well, who would really, so how do you get maximization of this? To give you an idea, or creative process. And somebody said, well, who's the biggest customer? Well, the biggest customer are all the governments in the United States. And they're like, well, hang on a minute. So who could really gain? Who would gain more than anyone else to get all of those customers? And we came up with minority-owned businesses. Well, what minority-owned business has enough money to pay a huge multiple? Well, wait a minute. A zero tax-based First Nations firm with $2 billion of cash in Alaska was sniffing around, hit one of our radars. We're like, wait a minute. If you guys bought this business, all things being equal, you're minority-owned, forget the fact you're zero tax, and you want to come down and invest that money in the lower 48, that would be a home run for you. You would be able to triple, quadruple the size of the business. And so therefore that question of what is the integrated value goes up and up and up. And they were like, wow, we are going to do that. And they made an offer that was literally 3 times what the client was expecting. And that is something that we never expected. And something that that was a surprise. I would say that's one of the unexpected ones. And I mean, I could give some others. I mean, right now, we're closing. Right now, there's meetings going on in Europe between a Scottish, I won't describe it completely, but a drinks manufacturer that's not legal to sell in North America. Let's just say that.
Oh, I know what it is. Me being Scottish, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, well, don't say it. Okay. So we went around the world to find buyers. Of course, the Eastern Europeans are wild men, right? So they want to buy it. But then we have a Mauritius-based conglomerate that is on the final stage buying it. Now, who would think a buyer of their business was going to come from Mauritius? And who would ever think that? And so I'll give you one more example. We set the record for the largest wireless retail group ever formed in the world, and for the highest multiple in the neighborhood of 40 million. We got them over 500 million. Now they've just done a transaction over 2 billion. It's a massive success. The buyer came out of Japan that drove the value up. And we had to go to Tokyo to figure all this out. But you'll never guess why they bought it. It had nothing to do with the phones. Can you guess why? Because I didn't get it. And it was only after the second bottle of wine with the 70-year-old Japanese executive, he slammed his fist down. He said, it's the insurance. That's why we're buying it. We thought, insurance? He said, don't you realize in your monthly piece, which is 95%, is the 10 or 15 or $20 a month, or even $5 that goes to insurance. So if you lose your phone, you get it back. And that's what they wanted it for. And that's why they wanted to build the largest of that carrier. So you never know where it's going to come from. And so there's a couple of creations.
We actually suggest sending a bottle of bourbon to the client before we start. We say, trust the process, because there's a lot of ups and downs through it. You don't quite know who would be the buyer. I had one recently where it was a nonprofit that ended up being the buyer. And you think, whoa, nonprofit. And it's, well, their required and preferred outcomes was both monetary and ensuring that the business continues in longevity. And that worked out really, really well. So trusting the process is like one of the most important pieces of advice we give to our clients when we begin.
Hallelujah. So whoever is listening that works with us, Urgio, what do we say? Good process brings good results. So focus on how you do things. Don't worry about the results. Don't look at your gross revenue, folks. Trust in the behaviors and the systems. That is key. Oh, yeah. I lived in Japan for a while, and I was thinking, wow, and I was like, okay, what's that? I've been on Chinese, Japanese negotiations. Oh my goodness. There's millennials of hatred sometimes at the table. You're like, oh my goodness gracious.
And they sure will bid against each other.
Absolutely. Okay, a couple of more questions. What is the quickest, best deal you guys have put together? Like talking about, like, what's you guys like Monday, you guys got a client, a business, and by Thursday, you're like, oh shit, it's done. we're
Well,
we're
didn't you just talk about one yesterday that should close in 90 days, Shamil?
Yeah, that one is quite surprising. We took on a client who we sometimes will pick a client. We call it our value max process.
Gotcha.
We know they're selling longer term.
Gotcha.
And so we're going to work with them over a 2 to 3 year period, make sure they make the right strategic moves.
Mhm.
Sometimes they need to, figure out if there's where access to capital, so we can make an introduction if that's helpful to them. And ultimately, the goal is to sell that later on.
Mhm.
Well, we haven't closed it, but there's a really interesting purpose tech business that has been approached, and by someone we met them actually through our charitable work. So that's where your worlds collide, right? And so and all of a sudden they go, hey, we're very interested. We'd like to see if we can close this within the next 90 days. So we're going through it. And it's sometimes it's that serendipity factor, but you got to be in enough places for serendipity to happen, right?
I always say luck never happens because preparation. My wife hates me because having been in the military and worked with crisis management and emergency response, I'm always prepared. We always have like a 72-hour kit, and before meetings I prepare and all that stuff. And she goes, "Do you ever stop?" And I said, "Hey, when you're prepared, an opportunity shows up, you're ready for it." And that for me is, people always say, "Oh, Martin, you're calm, you're composed, you're so lucky." Fuck you, I'm lucky. I worked hard to be lucky. Like, I prepare, I work hard. And then so when the opportunity shows up, I know how to identify it. I know who to ask to say, hey, am I full of shit? Or, hey, is this the right thing? And I think STS really, for me, what I've learned in this conversation is how good it is to have somebody have your back when you're looking at selling your business. And that's what you guys do. You guys know a lot more. You've got a great, huge network. You know what we don't know. And it's to say, okay, hey, here, let me hold your hand. I've got my hand on your shoulder. Let's do this together. We'll work together. I think that's the key thing of what you guys really do, because there are sharks out there, Rob, as you said. There are people who will you'll eat your leg. They will eat your leg and not even think twice about it. So
well said. Well said. I think that's a great summary. Thank you.
We could also, in addition to having your back, there is a role to be played by having somebody who can say, I need to go and convince the seller that this is the right deal for them. Right. So you get, there's a little bit of, in our kind of sales process, we call it escalating. You need an escalation path. Well, you, the CEO founder, are the decider, and we're able to get all the right. We can almost go at the negotiation 2-3 times before you even get to weigh in to some extent. Right. So we've always got an additional escalation path. And that dynamic is very important, because especially savvy buyers, they try to throw in the kitchen sink at you. They'll throw, they'll throw crazy numbers. They'll put in a new formula, a new model. They'll bring someone spiffy whose like whole job is to negotiate. And, you need someone to help you through that, and then the last role is, I like to think of it as, as part of having your back, we're also your hype man. We're also your emotional support. You get a call, on the weekend, and you're just like, wait, is this the right move? Do I know what I'm doing?
Shamil, Rob.
And but think about it. People build a business. You know what goes into that, right, Martin? It's like your baby, your life, your sweat, your blood, your tears, your family livelihood. It's the biggest decision of your life in the business world.
Rob, I'm going to ask you this final question. What's the one piece of reference? It could be a movie, it could be a book. I'll give you mine. Okay. Mine is Master and Commander. So the Russell Crowe movie, they're on the ship, and the choices that leader has to make for the survival of the mission and the ship is just, there's a full bunch of knowledge and experiences and behavior that I repeat with at least twice with every client. So that's my go-to. What is yours? What's the one book, one piece of refer material that you go back to consistently?
I I don't think I have one, but the one that comes to mind was because developing our people is my highest priority. You know, bringing in the very best people to join our team to support our clients in developing our people. So Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People comes back to my mind a lot. Stephen was not a good speaker. He was dry, but I met him many times, and his son then took on, his work. But that work that he did in summarizing, if you remember the beginning of his book, he said, I read and I talked to, 1,000 leaders. I read 1,000 books. I'm going to summarize, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that, sharpening the saw, I don't do enough of that. First things first, and understanding, making sure you understand before you seek to understand before you seek to be understood. I mean, those are powerful lessons that I think that that people need to be aware of as they grow in their leadership roles, both interfacing with clients and, as our team grows. So that's one that comes to mind.
I agree. First things first. I reread. I'm on my, I think, 6th or 7th copy of Covey. It's Shamil, I'm gonna wait. We're gonna do part 2 because there's too much for one podcast. So Shamil and I are gonna go on a different episode. And so Shamil is gonna be the main guest on that one. And then Shamil, you can be my center of attention and I'll ask you all those questions again. So thank you very much, Rob and Shamil, for being on the show. I think that, there's enough to go on for another couple of hours, just going through all the details. What we'll do is we'll put all the links together. We'll put at the bottom, make sure that people reach out to you for that. So Rob, Shamil, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very, very much. And thanks for your support here, Shamil.
Thank you, Martin. We look forward to breaking bread with you in Whistler sometime soon.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, with that said, thank you very much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and whatever the marketing team tells me to tell you to do. My name is Martin Hunter. I'm the host of What CEOs Talk About, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to What CEOs Talk About. Make sure to click subscribe to get notified about future episodes or check us out at www.whatceostalkabout.com.